Okay, this is going to be the first in a series of videos I'm going to do on how to collect Alice in Wonderland books and other things and how you organize them. Now, I'm going to start right off and saying I'm not an expert. I am knowledgeable, but I'm not an expert. Why do I like Alice in Wonderland? Alice had very good Victorian proper behavior. She was a girl that was extremely curious, was very polite, even when those around her weren't being polite, and she was adaptable. Everything that was thrown at her, from the Mad Tea Party to a talking cat to a baby that turned into a pig and so forth, she adapted to it. And she kept going and she kept getting stronger. And this was done in a book without any actual overt violence. Now the Queen, yes, the Queen threatened, off with her head, and so forth. But the King basically said, don't bother. So nobody actually died. And the story didn't depend on sex. It was just a good story about a good girl that was trying to do her best in a very unusual situation. Now, if you're going to have a collection of Alice in Wonderland books and so forth, if you only have a few, 5 or 10, you're not going to need to organize those. It's more trouble than it's worth. But when you start getting into the hundreds, and I think I have around 380 books, I found out I needed to organize them. Now, you may not feel you need to, but I'm doing this in a way that makes sense to me. Now, at the end of this video, I'm going to have some displays on the screen which will be listing some of the things I'm saying, so you don't have to write it down or anything. My method of organization is based on what type of item it is, and I'll show you in a minute. The way I organized things was Alice in Wonderland books, period. Just the story Alice in Wonderland. Through the Looking Glass, period. Just that story. Then there's books which have both Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass in them. Then there's books that have those two plus a bunch of other of his writings. So those are 3 separate types of books. There are foreign editions of Alice in Wonderland. I think over 200 languages or something has already been translated in. I like to keep those separate. And any books that are really, I consider old. Now again, I'm not an expert. I consider if a book is from 1950s, it's old. And I have a few that are older than that. There are DVDs and CDs that you can get for your collection. Then there's factual books, which may be about Lewis Carroll himself, Charles Lutwidge Johnson. It may be about interpretations of what his writings mean. Then there are fiction books. Now, there are fiction books that are relatively close adaptations of Alice in Wonderland. There are ones that are variations on the theme, and these vary anywhere from most of the regular characters in unusual situations into why did they even try to pass this off as an Alice in Wonderland book when the characters aren't that necessary. It could have been thrown anybody else they threw in there. And then there's the X-rated books. You can also make a Alice in Wonderland scrapbook, which I'll show you in another video. There are also comic books, graphic novels, and manga. The manga are the paperback-like books originally from Japan, and you can find those in different languages. There's the Lewis Carroll Society of North America publications, the Night Letter. I'll show you that later. There's other things that are related to Alice in Wonderland, like games and toys and so forth. And then there's the Kindle books. With the Kindle books, you have a choice. If you can straight out buy them, or you can join Kindle Unlimited for $10 a month and get as many books as you want. The only thing about that is you have to return them. Now, there are some Alice in Wonderland books on the Kindle that are only available in Kindle, that you can't get in paperback. So if you want to buy Kindle books, you can either just spend the money and keep them in your cloud, or you can do Kindle Unlimited, read them, maybe review them, and then you have to delete them after, send them back after a while. If you choose to do reviews of those books, you can do those and post them on Amazon. You could post them on Goodreads, which is what I do. You can also divide things into the type of the book, whether it's a hardback book, a paperback book, a comic book, graphic novel, or a digital book. In fiction books, you can break those down by publishing date, by the artist, or by the country the book was published in. Now, the artist is what I like to look at. I think I have books around 70 different artists, and they range from what is this kind of drawing, which is what I felt about the Salvador Dali book, to ones that are really good. And especially you can see how it changes over time, how the books from the 1920s, say, show quite a different version physically of Alice than later books. I'll also have a breakdown of where you can get things. I'll again put that up on the screen. eBay is a very good source. And you can also pick up books, Alice in Wonderland related books, published in other countries from them. Bonanza and Etsy are two other auction places. What I have found is that those two, the items are a little bit higher priced than they are on eBay. Amazon, of course, is an excellent source of Alice in Wonderland materials. Albris Books, ALBRIS, that's another good source. And Google, that can be a source not just of being able to buy things, but learning about things. One of the things I did was download a lot of PDFs that were theses and articles, and I'll show you that. The episodes I plan to do, if this works out, is one on DVDs and CDs. An Alice in Wonderland scrapbook that I've done. Different artists, where I'll show you some of the different artists' drawings from the books. I'm planning on doing one on factual books, and one on other Alice in Wonderland things, like toys, games, and so forth. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is show you physically how I've set mine up. Okay. What you can see here is that I have two shelves, two bookcases of Alice in Wonderland things. Okay, how to change the battery. The top shelf has puzzles on the end and DVDs and CDs. Now the second shelf, these are straight Alice in Wonderland books. And you can see I have an Alice in Wonderland figurine there. The two are from iZombie. And I also have a tendency to collect Hot Wheels cars. Then there's some more down here. And there's a Hot Wheels Alice in Wonderland van. And then more of those books down here. Now the second shelf continues the Alice in Wonderland books. Then we have older books, and we're going into the more Alice in Wonderland. Then these are the night letters from the Lewis Carroll Society of North America. Then we have collections of the various stories Lewis Carroll did. And Alice in Wonderland, starting to get into Through the Looking Glass, and those go on down there. Bottom shelf, Through the Looking Glass only, games, more Alice the Snark, which I happen to really like. And in this section is the PDFs, and I'll show you something about that in a minute. Now this top shelf consists of graphic novels, manga, an Alice in Wonderland figure, more manga, games, and another puzzle. Then we go into the comic books and some graphic novels. Then we start getting into the factual materials. And more factual materials, things about Lewis Carroll himself, things about the woman that Alice in Wonderland was based on, Alice in Comic Land, art, and so forth. Then we go down here into coloring books, and there are a lot of coloring books available. Then more variations on different kinds of things about Alice in Wonderland, different kinds of things, tarot cards for Wonderland, a thing that looks like a book but it really isn't. Then down here we start getting into the variations, and some of those are whole long series. And in the bottom shelf, we have more of the same. Luckily, I've got room to put some more. Now, this is an Alice in Wonderland scrapbook. I'll do a thing on that later, but this is an example of kinds of things that are in it. This is an old Alice in Wonderland book. That one's 1916. Now this is where I put, I have the PDFs. This one with the wonderful title, Lewis Carroll, and the Alice books, an examination of biographical and psychological influences on aesthetic and thematic concerns. A lot of them are that way of title. This is an example of a night letter. And this is one of the Wonderland board games. I've got quite a few things. Now my collection is not that big compared to quote-unquote serious collectors. But I still got quite a few things in it, and I really needed to get it organized. And why? Because sometime if I think I want to look at something particular, I can go to the spot Oh, I just need Alice in Wonderland. Well, that's right over there. Or I need to look at my old books. That's over there. I need to look at my foreign books. That's over there. I need to look at fact books. That's over there. Down there for other things. It makes it a lot easier to find stuff. So hopefully this may prove of help to somebody. And like I say, I'll be putting some things at the end of this talking part, which will list what are the things I've been talking about. Um, if you have questions about this, you can ask them in the comments section. But remember, like I said, I'm not an expert. I'm knowledgeable. I really like the writing, but I'm not an expert, and I'm not even going to pretend to be one. So you can see